be honest with you, I appreciated everything about Victoria's entrance and who she was, because whatever you need to do to stand out, she did it. And I remembered her name.
Bachelor Matt James is denying that producers made him give the final rose of the first night to Victoria in a new interview with Jimmy Kimmel, and we're breaking down all the details. Hey guys, welcome back to another Shared News from Home. We have to talk about the Matt James Jimmy Kimmel interview, but before we get into it, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any future updates. As always, I'm your host, Gabby Gonta, and I'm joined by the awesome Avery Grooms today. Hi, Avery.
Hi, Gabby.
All right, let's get into this interview. There's so much to unpack here. The 25th season of The Bachelor premiered on Monday, and besides the 2 hours of riveting drama we get during the episode, we always look forward to the stars' interviews on the talk shows after the fact. Matt James sat down with Jimmy Kimmel virtually on Monday night. Of course, Kimmel and James Cordon have both returned to filming from their homes again due to COVID, so they did it all virtual, but Matt James was right there ready to talk to Jimmy. It turns out that Matt and Jimmy had met once before at one of Kimmel's shows in New York, and that Matt has a friend of a friend relationship with Jimmy Kimmel's agent. So, small world, they found out they had this connection, and it seemed like Matt was pretty nervous during this interview. But what do you think, Avery? How do you think he handled this interview after the premiere? It was a huge day for him, first day as The Bachelor. And, you know, he was nervous. He was kind of shaking the whole time, but he clearly could relate to, did you notice that? But he could clearly relate to Jimmy. Yeah. They had a mutual friend, though, so they got to talk about that. And, of course, Jimmy's hilarious. Matt was laughing the whole time. So he seemed to ease up a little bit. But how did he handle this pressure of just being on all these crazy, top-notch talk shows after his premiere?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of pressure. I feel like as the interview went on, he started to loosen up a little bit, especially at the beginning. He was doing that little bouncy thing, which I totally get. I can never sit still, even like when we're doing this. So I thought it was cute, though. Like, he's totally himself. He's just acting super chill, which I've noticed that's what he does when he gets nervous. But you could tell he was definitely prepped for this because he also did such a great job, avoiding those hard questions and trying to give anything away that might spill or ruin the show.
Exactly. He did a lot of keeping his lips tight, and we're going to get into that later. The two also got into talking about Matt's background, how he ended up being the lead without ever having been on a Bachelor show before, and his charity work. So he seemed very comfortable talking about all of that. Matt then said he was actually in the middle of a water balloon fight while quarantining with friends down in Florida when he got the call about being the Bachelor, and that he didn't even believe them at first. So we always seem to hear about how the leads get the call and they're doing something weird, or it's something they're totally not expecting. So how do we think Matt was feeling in this moment? Did he know how much this was going to change his life back then?
I feel like he was in complete shock. In the interview, he even says he had to wait for them to call him back because it's definitely a lot to process, especially when he applied to be on Claire's season and then tables totally turn and they suddenly want him as the lead when he's never been on the show. That's something that's definitely new. But he was also surrounded by, people who've been on The Bachelor and Bachelorette when he was in the quarantine crew. So he kind of had that support system to kind of egg him on to do it. But I think it was just totally a shock to him. But once it really set in that this is real and it was happening, he fully committed to it.
Exactly. That's a good point. It does help to have Hannah Brown and Tyler Cameron as your best friends who have gone through multiple seasons of the show. So at least I'm sure they were saying, don't worry, Matt, this is such a good opportunity. It's real, it's happening. And I'm sure they can give him some advice in that moment as well. Then later in the interview, of course, came the tough questions that we can always expect from Jimmy as he's trying to get the answers we all need and want. Jimmy mentioned a few of his favorite limo entrances of the first night, like the meatball purse, and also brought up Queen Victoria. Jimmy asked Matt, quote, was it difficult for you to not throw up on her when she announced herself? Matt laughed this one off and actually responded saying,
To be honest with you, I appreciated everything about Victoria's entrance and who she was, because whatever you need to do to stand out, she did it. And I remembered her name, and it was lighthearted, and it made me it broke the ice, you know?
So this was very interesting. I know Victoria was pretty out there, but Matt seemed to be defending her in this moment and some of the criticisms that we've seen just overnight. And when I was thinking about it, though, it makes sense that he maybe didn't see as many of her crazy moments behind the scenes that we did, like her interactions with the other girls. He was, probably talking to other girls and only really got to see her when they had their one-on-one time. And she was a little bit quirky then too, but maybe not as much as she was behind the scenes. So it seems like he wouldn't have noticed that until he was watching the premiere last night as well. So do we think he was being genuine when he, defended Victoria in this way? Or is he just trying to be too nice? What do you think?
Well, I get what he means by it kind of ease the tension, because as a lead, like the eyes are always on you and all the pressure. And then you have someone like silly like that kind of distracts from it.
Hey.
Excuse me, princess, but the queen is here. Okay.
Thank you for this.
Nice to meet you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I get how he could appreciate it in that sense. But I also just think he doesn't want to bash on anyone's name who showed up for his show or participated in it, just out of respect, and just wants to show that he appreciates all the girls for coming. So I definitely do think it was a little too nice, but I think that's how he is. I don't expect him to say anything bad about the girls. But as viewers, of course, we have a lot to say. And it's different though, because he actually knows her personally and we don't. So it's easier for people like us to pick at things like that. But overall, he was extremely nice during the interview he didn't say a single bad word about anyone, of course.
Exactly. Classic sweet Matt, of course, not saying anything bad about anyone. And that's a good point, though. We see a totally different side to these girls than he saw. If she stays for the next few weeks, then obviously, he had a lot more time with her than we even get to see in the edit that ends up on the TV. So it makes sense that he has a little bit of a different opinion and we can sit back at home and pick as much as we want. Then Jimmy was not shy to ask if it was the producers who put him up to giving Victoria the final rose on that first night's rose ceremony. I think we were even talking about this in our recap, that must have been a producer moment. It always happens, last second, they end up giving it to one of the, standout quirky girls, and it happened. So even Jimmy Kimmel noticed that and asked Matt what was going on there. Sweet Mr. Matt again responded saying,
No, that wasn't the case. She was great. I really enjoyed Victoria.
And are you marrying her?
And Matt went silent with no response. So he's really keeping his lips tight here. Do we think he's being too clean and perfect, with his answers to not give things away or not to say anything bad about anyone? Do we think he's being a little bit too clean here in this moment?
I think so, but at the same time, he has to. He's obviously prepped for interviews like this, and as the lead of a show like this, they can't do an interview and also give that much away while the show's airing. So I understand why he's just kind of holding a lot back, because he can't, or he'll ruin the whole show, especially knowing Bachelor Nation detectives. We would completely unravel the ending as of today if that was to come out. So I get why he's doing it, but of course we want more from him.
We're going to want more from him, and he's probably not going to give it to us, but we're just going to have to wait for each episode each week to get a little bit more of the story about everything that went down. To end the interview, though, Jimmy showed Matt headshots of the contestants that Jimmy's wife had chosen as her top 3 after night 1. I think it's hilarious that it wasn't Jimmy's favorites, but it was his wife's favorites. The 3 women she chose were Bree, Abigail, and Rachel, with specifically Rachel being the prediction to become Matt's bride. So we know that Rachel is rumored to go very far, but do we think Jimmy was playing this off just to get Matt's reaction to see if maybe she was, or maybe he would say something about it? Or, what was his tactic in showing him these girls and hoping he would give us a little bit of answers here?
Yeah, Jimmy definitely wanted a reaction, and you could tell once he said what he was going to do when he was going to show each face that Matt totally shut down and tried to keep the most straight face possible. But if you watch closely, he kind of lit up a little when they showed Abigail's picture, and then his face stayed more straight for Bree and Rachel. So I just thought that was interesting. But once again, we're not getting much from him, so it's hard to tell. But I think those were great guesses for the top 3 also.
Very true. We're going to have to keep an eye out for those 3, as well as all the ones that we've had our eye on since the first showing. But that's all we have for you guys today in Bachelor Matt James news. But before you go, make sure you leave a comment because we want to know what you think. What did you think of Matt's reactions in this interview? What's he giving too little? Did you want to hear more from him? And who are your top 3 picks just after the first night for Matt's season? Let us know. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any future Bachelor videos. I'm Gabby Gonta, and I was joined by Avery Groom today. You can come follow us on social. Our handles are on the screen right now. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye.